If you are a Cancer rising, I know you are tired of carrying the emotional weight for everyone else. In 2026, you finally learn how to put it down. This is a threshold year. Let's talk about why. This is the 2026 full year forecast for Cancer rising. In Astrofusion Lab, we read from the rising sign perspective because it shows how astrology lands in real life through relationships, work, money decisions, and the internal response to all of it. This is a collective forecast. Also, exact times can vary a bit by location and time zone, so use the dates as anchors. And make sure you stick around until the end. I'm going to share a specific timing technique that will tell you exactly which part of this forecast matters most for your specific age. For Cancer rising, 2026 is a threshold year, a year where your public direction and your private needs have to come into better alignment. It can feel like you're being asked to grow up in one area of life while getting softer and more honest in another. You may feel more sensitive to what isn't sustainable, work dynamics, relationship dynamics, even your own inner expectations. And the big lesson is that your sensitivity isn't a weakness this year, it's information. This isn't a year to disappear. It's a year to choose a direction, build the structure to support it, and stop living as if you have to do it all alone. As a Cancer rising, your chart ruler is the moon, so the moon sets the tone for how you move through 2026, your emotional rhythm, your instincts, your needs, and the way your inner world shapes your choices. In traditional astrology, the moon is also about cycles and timing. It describes what grows, what fades, what needs nourishment, and what needs rest. So, for Cancer rising, a big part of doing 2026 well is paying attention to your own rhythm instead of forcing yourself into someone else's pace. And there's another traditional detail I love here. The moon has its joy in the third house, the place traditionally called the goddess. So, when your daily life is supportive, when your mind is settled, and when your environment is healthy, you feel stronger. When those things are chaotic, everything else feels harder. So, this year, treat your day-to-day life like it matters, because it does. Your emotional health, your communication, your routines, and the people you're around regularly, those things shape your entire year. If you use the moon well in 2026, the theme is simple. Listen to your needs early, so you don't have to deal with them as a crisis later. The headline transit for Cancer rising in 2026 is Saturn and Neptune moving into Aries and activating your 10th house, your career, reputation, visibility, and the role you're building in the world. Here are the key timing anchors. Neptune enters Aries on January 26th at the very first degree. Saturn enters Aries on February 13th, and then they meet, Saturn conjunct Neptune on February 20th. For Cancer rising, the 10th house is one of the most public places in the chart. So, when major planets move here, it's not just inner work. It tends to show up through responsibilities, career direction, status shifts, leadership, and your relationship with authority, both your own authority and other people's. Saturn and Neptune together are a very specific mix. Neptune can dissolve an outdated dream or blur the edges of what you thought you were meant to do. Saturn pushes you to define it, commit to it, and build something real. So early 2026 can feel like a career identity reset, where you stop chasing what looks good and start asking what's actually sustainable. And a dignity note that matters. Saturn is in fall in Aries, so this can feel like pressure at first. Aries wants fast movement and independence. Saturn wants patience and structure. So instead of instant results, this transit rewards consistency, showing up, refining, simplifying, and taking yourself seriously even before you feel ready. If you've been asking the big questions, am I on the right path? Should I pivot? What am I really building? Late January through February is one of your clearest initiation windows. Not necessarily to force a big outcome, but to choose the structure you're willing to live by, because that structure becomes the foundation for the rest of the year. Now here's the second major storyline of 2026 for Cancer rising, and it's more private. On April 25th, Uranus leaves Taurus and enters Gemini. For Cancer rising, that activates your 12th house, the part of the chart connected to hidden stress, isolation, burnout patterns, and the things that live under the surface. So while your 10th house is getting activated publicly, Uranus in the 12th can feel like your inner world is getting restless. You may feel less tolerant of subconscious patterns you used to ignore. You may have moments where you realize you've been carrying anxiety, grief, or emotional weight in the background for a long time, and you're ready to do something different. This can also be a year where your relationship with rest changes. Uranus can disrupt sleep, disrupt routines, and bring sudden realizations. But it can also bring breakthroughs, especially if you're willing to experiment with what actually supports your nervous system. A specific warning for your mental health. There is a red flag week for your nervous system, early July. On July 4th, Mars meets Uranus in your 12th house. This is high-voltage energy in the sector of sleep and the subconscious. It can manifest as intense insomnia, a sudden spike in anxiety, or very active dreams. Treat your sleep like a job that week. Do not overstimulate your mind. The key is not to treat the 12th house like a problem. Treat it like a signal. If something is draining you, it's information. If you need solitude, it's not failure. It's part of the strategy. Now let's talk eclipses, because this is where the year tends to course correct you. First, the Aquarius and Leo eclipses. The solar eclipse in Aquarius happens on February 17th at 29 degrees, and the solar eclipse in Leo happens on August 12th at 20 degrees. For Cancer rising, Aquarius is your 8th house. Shared money, debt, inheritance, trust, intimacy, and the things that aren't fully in your control. Leo is your 2nd house. Income, possessions, and the stability you build through your own resources. So this axis is about money, power, and security, both yours and what you share with others. It can bring changes in financial agreements, relationship dynamics around trust, or the way you define safety. If you've been asking money questions this year, this is one of the main signatures. Second, the Virgo and Pisces eclipses. The lunar eclipse in Virgo happens on March 3rd at 13 degrees, and the lunar eclipse in Pisces happens on August 28th at 5 degrees. For Cancer rising, Virgo is your 3rd house, traditionally called the goddess, and it's where the moon has its joy. Daily life, communication, learning, siblings, and the patterns of your mind. Pisces is your 9th house, beliefs, education, travel, publishing, and the bigger story you live inside of. So, this second axis is about mindset and meaning. It can shift the way you think, the way you learn, and the direction your mind is moving toward. It can also bring turning points around education, teaching, writing, or travel, anything that expands your worldview. On August 18th, 2026, the lunar nodes change signs. The North Node leaves Pisces and enters Aquarius, and the South Node leaves Virgo and enters Leo. For Cancer rising, that lands across your 8th and 2nd houses, so it reinforces the money and security storyline for the rest of the year. With the North Node moving through Aquarius, growth pulls you toward deeper maturity around shared resources, debts, financial agreements, taxes, inheritances, intimacy, and trust. It asks you to get clear about what you're tied to, what you're responsible for, and what needs to be handled more intelligently. And with the South Node in Leo in your 2nd house, there's a release around old definitions of security, especially anything that's more about pride, image, or proving you're fine than actually building stability. If you've been asking, what should I focus on? After mid-August, it gets clearer. Clean up financial entanglements, strengthen your security, and make sure trust is backed by structure. Pluto continues moving through Aquarius, and for Cancer rising, that's your 8th house. Shared resources, trust, intimacy, debt, inheritance, and the parts of life that require deeper honesty. This is a long transit, so it's not a one-year story. But in 2026, you can feel what it's doing. It's asking you to grow up around power and entanglement. It's showing you where you're overly responsible, where you're overly dependent, or where you've been avoiding a conversation because it's uncomfortable. Pluto in the 8th can bring deep emotional work, financial restructuring, and a different relationship with intimacy. It can also expose where trust is real and where it's assumed. The point isn't to become guarded. The point is to become clear. When the agreements are clean, the relationship can actually be deeper. Jupiter is a supporting co-star in 2026, and for Cancer rising, it's a big one, because Jupiter starts the year in Cancer, and Jupiter is exalted there. A key timing anchor is June 30th, when Jupiter enters Leo. So, for the first half of 2026, Jupiter is moving through your first house, your body, identity, vitality, and the way you show up. This can feel like a confidence boost, but it's deeper than that. It can support healing, growth, visibility, and a stronger sense of self. It's one of the better signatures for feeling more like yourself again, especially if the last few years have been heavy. Then once Jupiter enters Leo on June 30th, it moves into your second house, money, income, and stability. So the second half of the year is supportive for building resources, strengthening finances, and making practical moves that help you feel safer. However, watch for mid-July. Around July 20th, Jupiter opposes Pluto across your financial axis. This is a peak moment for money decisions. It could be a payout, a big expense, or a final resolution about a debt. It forces a conversation between what I have and what we share. So, the pattern is simple. First, you grow into yourself, and then you build the kind of stability that supports that growth. The comeback. Also, mark August 11th. Mars enters your sign for the first time in 2 years. If you felt drained in early July with that 12th house energy, this is your physical comeback. Your energy, drive, and confidence return in full force. Late in the year, Venus goes retrograde, and for Cancer rising, this is one of the clearest timing windows for love, family, and emotional security. Venus stations retrograde on October 3rd at 8 degrees Scorpio, and then Venus stations direct on November 13th at 23 degrees Libra. For Cancer rising, this retrograde storyline moves across your 5th and 4th houses. Scorpio is your 5th house, traditionally called good fortune, romance, pleasure, creativity, children, and the part of life that's meant to feel joyful. Libra is your 4th house, home, family, roots, and your private foundation. A dignity note that matters. Venus in Scorpio is traditionally in detriment, so during the retrograde phase, desire can feel intense and complicated. It can bring old romantic patterns back up for review, or make it clear where you've been settling emotionally. Then, when Venus turns direct in Libra, where Venus is in domicile, things usually get clearer, calmer, and more balanced. It can be a really supportive window for repairing relationships, renegotiating home dynamics, or making changes that bring more peace into your private life. So, for Cancer rising, this is a season where love and home are connected. What you want romantically, what you need emotionally, and what kind of environment you're building, those themes start talking to each other. Before we close, I want to add one timing technique from traditional astrology that makes the year feel much more personal. Annual profections. Each year of life activates a house. That house becomes the main topic of the year, and its ruler becomes your Time Lord, the planet that helps tell the story of how the year unfolds. Profections are counted from your birthday to your next birthday, so your 2026 profection year starts on your birthday, not January 1st. For Cancer rising, here's the profection map. Find your age. How to use this. If your profection house lines up with the loud themes in the forecast, especially the 1st, 2nd, 8th, or 10th, those topics tend to feel more personal, and timing tends to show up more clearly. To pull it all together, 2026 is a year where your public path and your private needs have to come into alignment. Late January through February sets the tone as Saturn and Neptune enter Aries and activate your 10th house, reshaping career direction, responsibility, and the role you're stepping into. Late April brings Uranus into your 12th, which makes your inner life louder, so rest, boundaries, and nervous system care become part of your strategy, not an afterthought. The eclipses and the nodal shift keep emphasizing money and security, especially the balance between your resources and what you share with others. Jupiter gives you real support early in the year by growing confidence and identity. And then after June 30, it helps you build stability through finances. And Venus retrograde in the fall connects love and home, asking you to get honest about what you want and what actually brings peace. If you keep it simple, build the structure, protect your energy, and stop carrying what isn't yours. This has been your 2026 full year forecast for Cancer rising from Astro Lab, where ancient astrology meets modern psychological insight. Each month, we'll come back to these themes and track how they unfold in real time.